Alright, to gain access to the cables, I'm going to remove this jam clamp. It's clipped into this jam, so we're going to start by removing these screws all the way down the column. Then from there, the jam will just roll out and unclip itself. You got to make sure that these cables are in alignment with this to be able to fully remove it. Alright, for this interior bottom cable, we're going to replace it with the room all the way in the end position. So what I'm going to do is we're going to simply just cut the cable and say that it broke before we got here. Okay. And we'll go even further by pulling the old cable out. Just going from here. Alright, we're going to remove the cable from the chain. As you can see, it's being held on by a cable connector bracket onto the chain. These Torx screws are a T20 bit. We're just going to simply remove this from the end of the chain and discard it. Then we're going to open up our cable replacement kit. And we're going to feed the new cable through the bracket and around the pulleys. So from here we're going to run the cable through the insert and up to the top hole. And I'm going to push down on the end of that cable because I want as much slack poking out the back side of it. You're going to hold the cable in place with this coupling nut. And I'm going to take the soldered end of this cable and my needle nose vice grips, and I'm going to bend this into a hook shape. Now that I got my hook, I'm going to run it around the pulley with the hook pointed upwards. And we're going to pull all the slack through the pulleys. Okay. Once through the pulleys, we're going to go back to our kit. We're going to pull the ferrule out. What we're going to do is we're going to run the cable through one side of the ferrule, then through the second open link of the chain. Like so. Then through the other side of the ferrule. I'm going to create a loop about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch in diameter while we're holding the slack here. And hold it in place with a pair of needle nose vice grips like so. Okay. At this point, we're going to want to disconnect this cable to give us some slack, but the threaded end doesn't allow us to pull that out of the standoff bracket. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the standoff bracket from the side wall of the slide. With the bracket removed, we're able to pull all the slack out of the jam to where we have enough room now to get our crimping tool in there. This cable's rated for over 2,000 pounds. So, to maintain the integrity of it, we're going to want to crimp it 3 times. So I crimp it once flush with the edge of one side. I crimp it the second time flush with the edge of the other side. And then the last one in the center. Then I'm going to cut the excess cable off. I'm going to discard that. Then I'm going to tape the end of the cable to where the strands of the cable don't flare out all over the place. Now I'm going to reattach the standoff bracket to the slide room right back into the same old holes. I'm going to remove the coupling nut and add the washer. And with the room still all the way in the in position, I'm just going to tighten the slack out of this cable. Once we got the cable up to tension, we're going to lock it in place with the jam nut. Then we're going to reinstall the jam clamp, and it's done. When reinstalling the jam clamp, you're going to want to line up the cables with these cutouts at the top and the bottom. So line up the bottom one first, then we're going to line up the top. We're going to slide it all the way back into place. We're going to line up this leg of the jam clamp into this channel of the jam. So in order to do that, we got to flick this wiper seal down at the bottom. Once we're past that, we can start lining everything up. Once it's clipped into place, it'll roll into place really easily. Alright, to gain access to the cables, I'm going to remove this jam clamp. It's clipped into this jam, so We're going to start by removing these screws all the way down the column. Then from there, the jam will just roll out and unclip itself. You got to make sure that these cables are in alignment with this to be able to fully remove it. At this point, you want to support the room with a jack and a 2x4. Next step is we're going to loosen this interior top cable. And by doing that, I always like to put vice grips on there first to hold it in place. And then you'll use a 3/8 wrench for the cable coupling nut and a 7/16 wrench for the jam nut. And you'll break that loose. Remove the jam nut, and then you can use a ratcheting boxed in wrench to loosen the cable up. With the interior cable loose, you can physically push the room in to slacken the exterior cable. From there, you're going to remove the rubber grommet and disconnect your exterior cable. What I like to do while cutting through cable is I'll put a couple wraps of electrical tape around it, because these cables are made up of a bunch of small strands, and I want to do what I can to prevent those strands from flaring out. With a couple wraps of the electrical tape, you can cut through that tape, and the tape still holds the cable tightly wound together. From there, we're going to pull from the kit the braided sleeve. We're going to slide this braided sleeve on the old cable as far as we can go, and then we're going to tape the end of it onto the old cable. I'm going to try and do it with as few wraps as possible. Try to keep the electrical tape tightly wound against the braided sleeve and the cable, because it's got to be able to fit around all those pulleys. Once it's on the old cable, you're going to take the new cable out of the kit. You're going to slide the new cable into the other side of the braided sleeve. The way this sleeve works is kind of like a Chinese finger trap. Whenever you compress the sleeve, it expands. Whenever you pull on the sleeve, it draws tight. Then I like to run my hand from the very top of the sleeve all the way down to the bottom to ensure that that sleeve is tied up against the cable, and then I will tape around the other end. From there, I'll hook it to the standoff bracket, and in the kit will come a new rubber grommet, and I'll seat that rubber grommet in place so the cable end doesn't want to pop out of the slot. Now that the cable's taped together outside, we're going to go inside here and grab where the cable's connected to the chain, and we're going to pull it straight down. And with some luck, if I did my tape job correctly, we're going to see that cable get pulled through the pulleys. When you start to feel some tension, then you give the cable a quick yank, and the cable pulls right through. Then you unwrap your tape job. Once you have your braided sleeves removed, you're going to put the eye bolt in position. Feed it down into the cable connector bracket. You're going to thread one of the coupler nuts on about an inch. You're going to seat the nut into the bracket. Then you're going to take the ferrule. You're going to run the cable through one side of the ferrule, through the eye bolt, and then through the other side of the ferrule, and pull the cable as tight as you can. Get as much of the slack out of the cable as possible. You want to create a loop about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch in diameter, and then what I like to do is I like to hold that loop into place with a pair of needle nose vice grips. Then from there we're going to disconnect the exterior cable to where we can bring slack into the column. Now that the exterior cable is disconnected, we're going to pull all that slack from the outside in, making it easier to disconnect the eye bolt from the chain connector bracket. With the eye bolt out, we're going to go ahead and crimp the cable into place. These cables are rated for 2,000 pounds, and to keep that integrity, we've got to crimp this ferrule 3 times. So I start with one crimp on one side, the other crimp on the other side, and then the middle last. From there we'll cut the excess cable off, so, and as a courtesy we always tape the ends of the cables so that these strands don't flare out all over the place. Then we'll push some of this slack up and out so we can reconnect this eye bolt. Seat the nut back into the bracket. And then we'll reconnect the cable outside again. Going to reconnect the exterior cable. Don't forget your rubber grommet. Seat that into place to keep the cable from popping back out. And we're going to give the room a little tug. We're going to take a measurement from the sidewall to the back side of the standoff bracket. Right here it looks to be about 15.5 inches. And we're going to match that to the bottom. Right here we're about 15 inches. So from here we know we need to tighten that cable up approximately a 1/2 inch tighter to get the top in alignment with the bottom. Based on our measurements outside, we know we need to tighten this eye bolt another 1/2 inch. The way we do that is we'll take a pair of needle nose vice grips, We'll clamp it onto the eye bolt to keep that eye bolt from spinning while we're tightening it. And with our drill and socket combo, we go in here, seat ourselves onto the cable coupler, and tighten her down. Once your measurements match from top to bottom on the outside, what I do is I grab that eye bolt and I pull it out, and at this point we're going to put the jam nut on. With the exterior cables adjusted, you're going to line the jam clamp up with the cables, both bottom and top. Then you're going to line this groove of the jam clamp up with the channel of the jam. Like so. Sometimes you have to put one hand up high and one hand low for this to roll into place. At this point, we're going to remove our support. To properly adjust the interior cable, we're going to run the room all the way in. And before we tighten up that top cable, we're going to double check the tension of our bottom cable. We want it to be tight, and right now it's a little loose. So what we're going to do is we're going to, again, always hold on to our cables with a pair of vice grips as we're adjusting them. And we're going to break the jam nut loose. Then we're going to tighten the cable coupler nut to remove all the slack of this cable. I'm going to put the jam nut back on. Torque it back down. Move on to our top cable. Again, once it's adjusted, we're going to lock this cable adjustment down with a lock nut. And that's complete. To change the interior top cable, you're going to follow the same procedures as changing the interior bottom cable, but the only difference is the way you crimp the end, and this is the result we're looking for.